The door opens, and you find yourself exiting an elevator and walking down a long hallway that opens into a dimly lit but elegant cocktail bar. Lounge music plays softly from unseen sources, and the bartender informs you that you and another person that you haven't met before will have to play a game before you're allowed to leave, and implies that the stakes of the game could be fatal. His name is Decim, and he is the arbiter that will preside over the tribunal of your soul. This is the basic premise of the 2015 anime Death Parade, that when you die, you are transported to one of the bars in a mysterious tower, and are forced to play parlor games in the likes of darts, billiards, or Old Maid. The participants have no memory at first of their lives on the outside, and who they once were save for their names and a few odd details. It is said in the show that the shock of death keeps people from remembering things from who they were before when they first die. And so, before they even realize that they are dead, they're forced to play a game with another spirit, and the bartender observes the way that they carry and conduct themselves in the game, and uses that in part to make his judgments on if their soul is reincarnated or if they're sent to the void that lies beneath the tower. And it's in this structure that Death Parade is able to do something really special, because in setting up the location of the story like this, the creators of the show are allowed to tell wildly varied stories from episode to episode by having judgments pass on a group of different and eclectic individuals, while still keeping a consistent tone. So, in one episode, you may find a married couple that are now just learning things about each other that should have been stated years ago, that is animated like a horror story. And in another, you could have a tragic story of a young pair that slowly fall in love over a game of bowling. Each time you start an episode, you have no clue what you're going to get. You just know what you're going to get is some Death Parade. And I think that's brilliant, and is a lot like Cowboy Bebop in that respect, with the constant shifting genres and styles all housed under one collective title. In fact, comparisons could be drawn to a lot of classic anime in different ways. It possesses the otherworldliness of Spirited Away in its strange, unexplored environment that centers around the establishment of a business, as well as the genre per episode style of Cowboy Bebop. But you could also more accurately compare the show to Mushishi in the way that it feels, which I think is the most important aspect. The show is laid back, it is calm and soothing and peaceful, even in displaying the worst moments of utter human depravity. There's always light fantasy music, and it's a really easy show to relax to at the end of a long day, or in the morning with a cup of coffee. The show wants you to think, and it is as calm as possible to ease you into these situations of moral dilemmas and quandaries. The set design here is legendary, and also works to build that sense of ease that the show packs in every scene. The Quindecim looks and feels like a real place that I would actually want to go to, and each time a new room or location is shown, it looks drastically different than the others in a good way that fits with the overall feel and tone of the show. The world building in Death Parade is more shown through environmental elements than it is directly said out loud by the characters. There are 3 basic rules that apply to all arbiters that judge all souls, and these are repeated frequently throughout the show, like a mantra. But other than that, little is actually said about the world, leaving the environmental design to carry a large portion of that weight. Madhouse is conservative with the elements that they share with us about the world of Death Parade, but that leads each new piece of information a feeling of tactile importance. The trolley that is shown to arrive in one episode carrying Nona and the black-haired woman is never really mentioned out loud or explained, and it leaves a great feeling of mystery as to where it comes from and what its exact function is here in the afterlife. It just shows up and exists without anyone commenting on it, leaving the world with a feeling of strong reality and wonder. We know that the entire series takes place within a single tower, but we never see the exterior of it, leaving us to think of how monstrous it might be in scale. Every floor is dedicated to a different arbiter, and the way that the different floors are designed mirrors the personality of the arbiter in really nice ways. And it's little details like this that really add up to the big picture of what the series really is and how it really feels. The anime came about in a really interesting way as well. It was created by Studio Madhouse, an indomitable force in the Japanese animation industry that are responsible for game-changing animes like Perfect Blue, Death Note, Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man, as well as many others. And it is their dedication to presentation and professionalism that leads to the series looking as good as it does. The series, though, came about out of Madhouse's participation in the annual Young Animator Training Project, that is a joint effort in Japan between the Agency for Cultural Affairs and the Japanese Animation Creators Association, to continue to build a new influx of animators into the ever-growing industry to prevent their jobs from going overseas to places like Korea. The Young Animator Training Project sees the top animation companies coming together and sending small teams of young future animators to create short anime that are then presented in a festival-like setting. Several projects formed in the project have gone on to become much larger creations like Little Witch Academia. And in 2013, the Madhouse team assembled a short project called Death Billiards that would later grow and fully mature as a Madhouse project intended for commercial audiences because of how confident they felt in the short, which is easy to find online if you're interested, because I would really recommend that as well, to see how the series developed in the 2 years between this and the full release of the series. Its main story, however, is one of the strongest suits as well as the biggest detractors. One of the main characters, the black-haired woman, is a person who arrives to the bar not even remembering her own name, but already knowing that she is dead, thus tainting the normal operations of the Quindecim, because knowing that she is dead would affect the way that she behaved during the game. And so Decim, the bartender, works out a deal with Nona, the overseer, to allow her to stay and assist him with his tribunals for 3 months, while he observes the way that she acts in that setting in a position of power. This is done in secret, however, hidden from Oculus, the closest figure to God in the show, whose full extent of power is never really known. This deal is hidden from him because of the 3 rules that he created, that the Arbiters are sworn by, that prohibits this kind of close relationships with humans, because being too close to a mortal being would ruin their judgments, forcing them to use their emotions more frequently out of attachment and sympathizing with those who have gone through life instead of looking at the basic facts. It brings into play a number of deep moral questions that deal with the subtleties of implications and intentions, and asks who really has the right to judge another. Before the show begins, Decim is carrying out all of his orders, judging couple after couple, and has been probably for quite some time, without really thinking deeply about the nature of this act. And he even admits at one point early on that he's probably gotten a few of them wrong, and sent a few people to the void who didn't deserve it. And it isn't until the black-haired woman arrives does he really begin to see people as people, and understand that just because someone commits an act against another, that they don't always have full control over their environments that surround them, and that this can greatly affect a person's life, causing them to turn out differently than they may have if they had had a different support system in their life, or if things had been different for them. Because the world isn't really black or white, and through this, Decim gains compassion. He always had respect for people who lived full lives, but before now he hadn't really known what that meant entirely. And through the black-haired woman, he gains a new perspective on the very nature of life and what it means to be human. Because that is the story that Death Parade is trying to tell. That there are so many factors that go into every facet of every action of our day-to-day lives that it is truly incomprehensible. And because of that, who are we to judge another? It is a meditation on the little thoughts that pass through our minds about strangers on the street, about crime and punishment, about salvation and damnation, and who really has absolute free will over their environments or actions. And in that regard, Death Parade is a masterpiece. But on the other hand, this intense focus on the act of judgment holds the show back in that it never really fully utilizes its setup and setting. The tower that the show takes place in is structured in such a way that any topic covering the human condition could be covered within the show. This is evident in the few tribunals that we as the audience are permitted to see. But the fact that Death Parade, in trying to answer the question of who has the right to judge, forgets to look at many other questions that it could be looking at. We only see 2 arbiters in their natural setting performing their duties. And we have scenes like God and the manager of the afterlife playing pool with solar system pool balls and lightsaber cues that could have gone a lot deeper, because we only scratched the surface of these relationships, and more episodes could have been added to explore more themes through the setting of the Quindecim and the Tower. The openings in anime historically hint at things to come later in the show, and in a way serves as a means to hype the audience to see these scenes later on. And Death Parade is no different. It shows characters together and suggests further development in the relationships that the show just actually doesn't get to. And so, while I know it's not good practice to critique something for what it isn't, rather than what it is, I have to say that the biggest problem with Death Parade is just that there isn't more of it. It only ran for 1 season, and what's there is excellent. But it just makes me sad knowing that this wasn't a property that was latched onto in a great deal by the public. It sold poorly in Japan, and thus wasn't supported with a continuing story. It wraps up quite nicely, and for those wondering, it does have a satisfying end, which is not frequently the case with 1-season anime. But it does make me wonder what possibilities could have come about with further installments. But I guess that's kind of the point also. Because at the end of the day, it is a show about potential, and what it means to do the best with the time that you are given, even if you have grander plans to reach to in the future that you may not actually get to. Any of us could go at any moment. And so the show, not getting a 2nd season, is kind of the best reinforcement of the main theme that the show could have presented. Because while it isn't long, it's strong, and does more than a lot of shows have done that went on for longer. and does all it could possibly do with the time that it had. We are constantly shown the faces of people who died before they expected to, and we are constantly asked if they lived a full life, which in turn begs us to ask the same of ourselves. And I think that's an important question to ask from time to time, and it is just one of the many reasons that Death Parade should be loved and remembered.